From the dawn of time, our ancestors have left us with the tales. Stories which speak of things that they have seen and lived alongside by, feared, respected, and even looked to some of them as godlike. Modern man refers to such things as spirits, extraterrestrials, demons, cryptids, creatures, and entities of all kinds, and so much more. These things and tales are now referred by most as myths and legends. But there are those of us that know what our ancestors spoke of was the truth. Those of us that have become obsessed in searching for answers and finding out the truth are here. We need the truth. This search brings us into the realm of the unexplained and unknown. It brings us on the trail. The search for living legends. Please join JR and I on the quest, and welcome to the search.
Welcome everyone to episode 13 of On the Trail in Search of Living Legends. Sorry, little out of it tonight. Anyway, we are fortunate enough to have Miss Ashey Jacobs on with us. Ashey, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Doing really good.
It's the pleasure to finally sit down and talk with you. I know we run in the same circle, but haven't really had a chance to sit down and talk to you one-on-one yet. Been really looking forward to this interview.
I'm honored to be here. Thanks.
So, well, it's my honor. I was kind of upset, like you said. I wanted you to meet the other guys as well, but it is what it is, I guess. Who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us and hop on. But anyway, can you just give me kind of like a bio on yourself, like a backstory, how you got into this crazy business we're all in?
Yeah. I mean, I've had paranormal experiences like from when I was younger, and I was always interested in your typical, just the shows and just anything out of the norm. I had an interest in, but I never knew if I believed. And it was just that kind of thing where I was on the fence. Yeah, it's a possibility. I try to keep an open mind. And then I started working at a juvenile boot camp for juvenile offenders from 12 to 18. And one of my first days there was this track. I mean, this footprint in it was pretty hard ground. And I was like, what in the heck is that? I said, I even called one of the little inmates over and I said, what does that look like to you? He said, a footprint. He said, did you do that? And I was like, no. And I said, do me a favor, like stand close to it and stand on it and see if you make a print. Nothing. And then I said, okay, jump up and down. And this kid was like 6'2", and probably 250 pounds. He's a real tall kid for
big boy.
Oh yeah. And he jumped up and down, and I mean, all it did was like scatter some rocks and gravel. Didn't make an actual impression. And I just thought it was weird. And I mean, I did take a picture of it and, put my boot next to it. And other than that, my mind just went elsewhere. I mean, I wasn't thinking Bigfoot, it did cross my mind, but I was just like, that was weird, but I'm sure I was like, there's an explanation for it. And then I started here. I went to the night shift after I did my training, and at night started hearing these sounds that weren't human, weren't animal. And I'm an avid hunter. I know my wildlife, so I know the sounds. I know what birds there are that sing and chirp and do things at night. And then we had this incident where we went for a security walk, and my shift partner and I were walking out there, and I caught eye shine with my light. And this was not like the deer that I'm used to catching, because it was government property and it was inside an old mine hole, so it was like a crater. And You know, we had to do the security walks. We didn't have to go in the woods or anything. It was just basically around tents, barracks, and buildings and whatnot. And we caught this eye shine, and it was the strangest thing. It was just, you know, it had a different color than that white that you're used to from
Right.
deer and whatnot. And it was behind some brush, and he started picking up rocks and chunking them. And I was like, "Dude, I wouldn't do that. You know, don't, whatever that is, that looks big." I said, because, you know, the eyes were a good distance apart. And, but he kept doing it, and I backed away from him. You know, I was just kind of, I wasn't like worried at that point, but I was just kind of, you know, checking the area. But I'd stepped back, and I wasn't looking at him, but there was this loud thump, and I thought he fell. So I went back around because I was about ready to laugh at him. And he's like standing there staring at his feet, and he's frozen. And I said, "What's wrong with you?" And he goes, "Look." So I get my light and I flash it, and there's this football sized rock. And I mean, like, huge at his feet.
Yeah.
And he said, "This just got thrown at me." And I was like, "Dude, I told you." And I mean, we started getting growls and all this other stuff. And then I told him to quit throwing rocks. He still wouldn't listen to me. So this thing came out and chased us.
No.
And we ran into the office and kind of got our stuff together and, you know, calmed down, went back out and found a trail of prints because, you know, there's dew on the grass. And you could tell where we had been because it looked like cross country skier marks. You know, it was just like the long strides, you know, because of how humans step. But then
Right.
where it had stepped, you see these footprints, and it looks like it ran in that way, kind of did a little dance, or, you know, sat there and watched by where the latrine was, and then turned around and went back at the exact same trail that it, you know, came up running into the camp. So that freaked me out. You know, there were certain instances like that that you know, continued to happen. But then one night there was an electrical storm, and it was real bad. I mean, we were expecting tornadoes, you know, just everything. And so I went out for my security walk. I went to go ahead and, you know, get the storm shelter unlocked for our, in case we had to move the inmates from their sleeping quarters into there at a moment's notice, and, you know, just basically stuff like that. And I had made it all the way around. I was coming back to the parade grounds, and I was standing there looking around, and it was like this voice in my head that said, "Get inside now." Whether it was just an instinctual thing, whether it was God trying to save me, whatever. It was just, and when it comes to, I say this all the time, when it comes to fight or flight, I'm a fight. You know, I'll run to what is going on. There's very little that scares me. But just that voice, you know, kind of made me go, whoa. And
Sure.
I listened to it, and so I turned around and I started kind of doing a little jog back to the thing, and the whole sky lit up with just, I mean, bursts of lightning. And I just happened to glance up to my right, and it was right above the obstacle course that we had, and there it was. I mean, this huge, massive, hair covered, at least 10 feet tall
Wow.
creature standing. I mean, he was not obscured by anything. He was standing by one single tree that was like on a outcrop just above the thing. There was no other trees, and he wasn't trying to do this. You know, he was just standing next to it with his arms by his side. And, you know, I turn around and kind of, you know how people react differently. I'm still running and I'm looking, you know, probably 3 to 5 seconds, and I'm like, what am I seeing? And it was just, it was the strangest thing, because it's not like I got freaked out. And that was, you know, I know I wasn't hallucinating. I know it wasn't just one of the, uh, you know, kinds of a delusion, whatever people want to say. Because my mind, Bigfoot was the furthest thing from my mind that night. I'm sitting there thinking
Right.
about the storm, and it was actually sitting there looking at me. It was about 50 yards away, and as massive as it was, I could actually see it with its head kind of tilted and looking at me like, what are you doing out in this weather? You know, like,
That's so interesting you say that. I don't mean to cut you off,
no,
but
you're good.
my wife had her encounter was with an extremely large one like that, over 10 feet. And she said the same thing as you just did. Like, it wasn't a fear thing. They kind of looked at each other and were like, "What are you doing out here? What are you know?" Like he was asking her, what are you doing out in these woods?" And she said she didn't feel any threat off him. Me, I probably would have lost control of my bodily functions, you know.
Yeah.
But that's just yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just found
No,
that that was interesting to me.
well,
Now,
no,
was it the
that's
same
cool.
one? Was it
Do
the
what?
same one, the same creature as the one you saw a couple nights prior, or the first time around?
I'm not sure. As time went on and I had more experiences, like shortly after that,
Mm,
I got curious. I'm really curious. And, whenever I do my security walks, I would go past where I was supposed to be, further up and actually trace where the brush line was and really do spotlighting because I wanted to see it again. I wanted to get that same full on view that I did before. And I knew it wouldn't be as perfect as it would have been that night because of how bright it was with the lightning. But, um, you know, I good vibes. There was, and I'm not gonna sit there and say I'm psychic or I'm an
yeah.
empath or whatever, but I do catch vibes. I can catch on to a vibe.
Mm,
And I didn't, like you said, I did not feel threatened at all. But to me, I look back and I laugh at my reaction because I'm just like, okay. And then I hit the door and I turn around and look at the parade grounds and then lightning struck, uh, not exactly where I'd been standing, but generally real close. And it was going back to me, tracing. There was one night when I could hear him walking in the brush and I kept trying to shine and he would growl at me so often. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to hurt you. I want to see you, you know?
right.
And he went up a ridge and I was still following and I caught some eye shine and I was talking to him and just like, come on, dude. I kept the thing and I swear I'd be dead right now if this thing would have hit me, but it wasn't that big of a rock, but it came flying. And I mean, I was standing by this mobile trailer that they have in case
Mm,
some of us had to work doubles and we needed to
right.
place to stay because this was out in the boonies. They made sure they were way away from civilization for this. And it ricocheted off the back of that trailer and went over into the wheelbarrows. And I was just like, okay, I'm leaving you alone. If you want to communicate, you can communicate with me. And after that, I mean, I honestly built a relationship with this thing. Now, it was only that one big red, is what I called him, because he had that
Cool.
reddish brown fur or hair, excuse me. And like, I don't, he was the only one that I saw, but I wonder, and I'm pretty sure there were more because the footprint that I found, it was roughly just a little bit bigger than my foot. And I wear anywhere from a 7 to a 9 in women's, just depending on the shoe.
Okay.
So it wasn't that big. So I'm pretty sure there were other squatches in the area, but I take him as possibly being the alpha. And that was, they're, having mine shafts and the air shafts or the air vents that were dug. It was just, and I had police officers that moonlighted doing the corrections officer jobs. They all had experiences. Kids would come running back, even though we watched them. Well, we didn't, of course, maybe in female, I didn't go in the latrine with them, but yeah, I'd
Right.
walk them out. And there would be nights when I was alone, when I was, by law, I wasn't supposed to be. You don't want a female officer with 20 or 30
Yeah.
juvenile offenders at night when we couldn't, we were not armed or anything like that. But it was like he knew when nobody was there, if they called in sick or somebody screwed up the schedule, whatever it may be. If I was there alone, he always let me know that he was there watching. And this was after several times of us, like, I'd take my breaks and I'd go back behind the building or over to the other field that was overlooking where I mostly saw him, and just kind of sit down and just let my vibe go and let him see I'm peaceful. I don't want to hurt you. And it's out of respect. I mean, I've got Cherokee and Creek in me. So yes, I had heard the stories and whatnot. But like I said, I was on the fence. I just had the open mind up until these things happened, and I, saw it. And that's what pretty much got me into researching. I mean, for a while, I didn't touch it. Of course, I would research in there, but as far as making it public for what I had seen, it was that I'm afraid people are going to think I'm crazy. I mean, even though crazy is one of my nicknames, but that's for other reasons. But, getting laughed at and you're full of it, whatever it may be. That was, I went through that syndrome for a little while. And then I met some other people from another group here in Alabama and spoke to them for a while. Actually went and stayed the night, on several times with this friend. And she basically took me under her wing, and she was like, look, who cares what other people think? And then I finally got that mentality. And then that's when I started going out and finding pages or groups about Bigfoot. I started reading more about it and researching it the best I could. And I just got to the point where I was like, okay, I don't care what people think. I know what I saw. I know I was not hallucinating. I know it wasn't, because, like I said, Bigfoot was the furthest thing from my mind that night when I'm running and there's an electrical storm and listening to the weather radio, seeing if we got to get them out of there. Their safety was number one. And that was what was occupying my mind. So, even though you think, that flash of lightning in 3 to 5 seconds, but actually 3 to 5 seconds is a pretty long time, especially for somebody that's into, and like, Gary says all the time, keep your head on a swivel and, your situational awareness. As long as you hold on to that, I mean, that's one thing about me. That's, I'm that kind of person. I can walk into a place, sit down, and then turn around, if you're at how many hats and what are they, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's one of those things where I was like, yeah, I'm getting into this and it became fun. It became a passion for me.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Almost like an obsession, almost. That's how it was for me,
Yeah.
I after my first encounter in 2000, a couple of years, I really didn't want to. I just kind of wanted to stay away, because, like you said, the ridicule and people, oh, you're crazy. Things aren't real. I went through it forever too. But after a while, like you said, gets to the point where who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, we're all crazy anyway.
Of course. I mean,
so who cares? And like I'm part Mohawk. I grew up hearing the stories from my grandmother, and but I was, I was a believer, but I wasn't a knower, until my encounter, and that it still turned my world upside down, even though I was a believer beforehand. It's just it's a very it's very weird what's the word I'm looking for, subject. It's very it's different, What you say? I'm sorry.
It's a very different phenomenon.
It is. There's nothing like it. Nothing like it at all. Now, whereabouts in Alabama are you at? You don't have to tell me exact location, but
I'm more I'm the founder of the group. I can't spit it out. Cebtral Alabama Bigfoot Research Organization. I should have chosen the shorter name, but this I founded that, and it took me forever to do that, because it was like I kind of want to open up something where I can share my story where other people can share their stories, and I'll make it the rules, no ridiculing. If you don't like a
Yes.
post, if you don't think it's real, let it go. Just
Let it
scroll
go.
on past it. You
Don't
don't need
read it.
hatred. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I wanted people not to be afraid and go through what I went through.
Right.
And I'm sorry, what was the question? Where was I going with this? My brain just went.
You're good to go. I was just asking you about the part of Alabama you lived in.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry. I call it Central Alabama,
Okay.
but I'm actually kind of North Central.
Okay.
And it takes me roughly about 2 hours to get to Chattanooga. So,
Now, northern Alabama, it's kind of hilly, isn't it? Mountainous.
oh yeah, I mean, yeah, the further south you get, it is a little bit more, but we do have some of the Appalachians
Oh, gee,
start
I
here
was
that
just
run
gonna
through
ask
here.
you that. Okay.
Yeah,
It kind of
they start.
ends there, right?
Yeah,
Or
well, depending on which way you go, it either starts
depending on
or
which way
ends
you're
here. Yeah,
right,
because
right.
my cousin goes hiking all the time with his wife, and they go to the Appalachian Trail, and it's nice that they can do that and not have to drive out of the state to do it. So,
Right. Yeah, definitely. I know we have a little bit of it here, but I've gotta drive quite a ways if I wanna pick it up. Um, I've heard it's beautiful. It's on my bucket list for sure.
oh yeah, I
But
mean, it's definitely, and I mean, I've told Gary several times, and a few people, I want y'all to come down because I've
oh,
got some great
love it.
spots, and if I could straighten it out with my good friend, between her and her family, they've got several hundreds of acres
Nice.
that's family land, and I call it Squatch World. I mean, no, you don't get you don't have experiences or evidence every night, but
No,
you have it very often.
sure.
And I mean, she places a digital recorder in her window at night, just so she can catch anything that may not wake her up. And she has caught some of the craziest things. I mean, I don't know if Gary told you about it, but like we- I think I can't remember because I know y'all were on it. I was watching a show with you two together, but he was talking about one of the vocals that I told him about, where you could tell one was running on all fours. It sounded like a daggum Clydesdale. And it was just dum dum dum. And my friend's dog, German Shepherd, was going absolutely insane. And just arr, arr, and then you hear this deep voice, gravelly, that was nowhere near human. And it was going, a dog, a dog, a dog. And
Wow.
the dog you hear kind of start whining, and I'm assuming he went under the porch or something, backed off. And then again, you hear the galloping sound, that real heavy, like
Yep.
it's taken off. But that vocalization, when I listened to it, my jaw, I literally had my jaw dropped probably for a good half hour, just going,
Oh, I bet.
how in the world could, that it just blew my mind. And this
That's
was,
incredible.
yeah, I'll, if you, yeah, ask me more questions, and then I'll take you through some other real interesting experiences that I've had when it comes to
Very,
vocals, if you want.
very cool. Have you had them all over the state or just in that one particular
No, I
area you
try to
traveled?
find them. Yeah, I
Yeah.
will travel. I
Yeah.
travel. I have been to southern Alabama,
Mhm.
eastern parts, western, central. I like to be, most of it's in any place that is the outskirts. Not
Okay.
outskirts, but like way away from the
Yeah.
city, and just your suburbs and whatnot. Like, I live out in the boonies. I live in a very rural area,
Same
and
here.
it's, I don't know if you could consider it a highway for them, or if they live around here, but I know they do come by. And because I've got chicken houses, and a ranch, right, that's got, I think, right about now 60 head of cattle, and I've got a huge lake right there that's perfect water source, and then there's lots of just farming field and woods going, as Gary's seen it on aerial view. And you know, it's you know, I've caught some pretty cool things around here. Um, but a lot of times, and you know, like was it somebody, I can't remember who, but somebody was talking about, you know, whether they get along with other apex predators. And I have two wolves. I've got a timber wolf, and then I've got a timber wolf husky mix.
Oh, cool.
And I'll hear them. They've got, you know, they're different sounds. They're different, and they do that talking that I'm sure you've heard huskies
Oh, yeah.
do. My wolf has picked that up too. And they only do it with me when I'm out there playing with them or loving on them and feeding them and whatnot. And I heard them doing it one night, and I mean, I got some video I did on a little night vision app that's really not worth crap, but you could hear twigs snapping in the woods right behind their pen. And I went back there to investigate, and as I tried to take a step forward to the, you know, where the another twig snapped, I hear one over here and then one over here. And I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and back out just to be safe, because that, you know, number one, I don't like being surrounded. And number two, I was sitting there thinking, I wonder if this is a juvenile that likes to come play with the girls or, you know, see them, because they were excited. If they're doing that little talking, then they like what it is. But, you know, the twig snaps, or, you know, hearing brush and movement on either other side of me, I'm sitting there going, Mama and Daddy aren't going to let me take that foot forward without, you know, getting some kind of
Right.
repercussion. So, yeah, I backed out of there, and I said, I was going to let them just have their fun, as long as they
Probably
don't
a
bother
wise
my babies and
decision.
hurt them. Yeah,
Exactly. That's cool. A husky and a timber, you said, or gray mix? Yeah.
Timberwolf and Timberwolf husky mix.
Cool. I grew up with a wolf shepherd mix. We called it a timber shepherd. It was 62-38, the percentage.
Yeah.
He was a big boy, but man, I tell you, the hair just they're in the shedding. It was just insane.
That's how Lily is. Lily's my mix. I mean, when I go out to comb her, it's especially in the spring and the summer, I have to do it every day, if not every other day, you know.
Sure.
And I use those, you know, real good ones. And if I don't collect all the hair, if it blows away from before I can get it in a bag, it looks like it snowed.
Yeah.
Now, Ayasha, she's actually not that bad, because for some reason she did not get all that fluff like her brothers did. I mean, when her brothers, you know, she was the runt of the litter, and her brothers were, you know, so much bigger than her, but I don't know how much of it was fur just sticking out, you know, them being so fluffy. But yeah, I mean, I think they do get visited, because I
Oh,
can
I'm
tell
sure.
they're, you know, warning coyotes not to come up, because the coyotes will start howling down by the lake. They start their howling, coyotes shut up, and next time you hear them, they're a lot further away. So
Yeah. I think it's all situational. You know. The years are. I don't know how being a wolf. How he pretty domesticated. I take it you've raised this since it was a pup.
yeah, I've had Ayasha since she was, and Ayasha is the timber wolf, which means little one in
Yeah.
Cherokee, and I've had Lily since birth. So her mom was wolf husky mix as
Okay.
well. So
Yeah, it's probably a lot of it's probably situational. Now, there's red wolves in Alabama, isn't there?
yes, yes. I was actually around for the releasing of some. Was it down is just south of Tuscaloosa? And this wasn't that long ago. But yeah, they've released them, and as far as I know, they are thriving. I mean, I do follow the wolves and the conservation efforts and everything. And I understand up north, you know, people want the population control because of the ranchers and stuff. But and I know it's a nuisance to them, but you know, the way I look at it is, you know, you may own that home and that land, but you actually took their home. You know, it's
Absolutely.
you know, you built your home on top of their land. They were there
I agree.
first.
Yep.
So
I agree. Our numbers got real low in the Adirondack for a while, but they're starting to come back. They are starting to come back, and the moose population is out of control right now. Like, people are getting killed, hitting them, and the wolves are helping out a little bit, but there's only so much they can do because there aren't that many back yet, but they're starting to come back, which I think is great.
yeah.
I think
Now, a moose is something I definitely won't tangle with.
what's that?
A moose is definitely something I won't tangle with.
Oh, no, especially a mother with a calf. One of those dangerous situations you can run into.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Now, do you believe there's different types of these things, different subspecies?
Honestly, I wouldn't say that. I would say that they're just like us as far
Okay.
as they have genetics.
Okay.
No two are going to look alike. Some
Right.
could have, birth defects and come out looking different than the others in their family.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't want to sound offensive to anybody else in their beliefs, but just like dogmen, I've heard some really incredible stories and very compelling stories about it.
Same here.
But I tend not to believe. I have not seen any kind of proof. It's all like the blobs when it comes to the pictures and
Yeah.
photoshopped or something. And it's crazy. And I'm not calling the people that believe it. I mean, if you've seen one and you've seen one, I'd love to hear about it. But when it comes to just, different ones, I honestly don't think so. I just think they're like us, they just have
Yeah.
genetics that, they don't look alike. They don't, every single one is not a perfect replica of the other one. They all have different
Right.
features. They have different body builds. And I think one theory I've floated around is like, if you go back to the Patterson Gimlin film, Patty, she's filmed up north, and you could tell that she has weight on her. It's not total muscle.
Absolutely.
She's got like a layer of fat that you can see a lot. I know a lot of people say it looks like because she just gave birth, but when it comes to us women, our bodies don't, you could tell they don't
Yeah.
tend to go back the same they were after having a child. So her child could have already been a teenager, grown.
Sure.
But it's just she's older and that's the way her body was. And I
Sure.
wonder if, like, Big Red, when I saw him, I'd liken him to like looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was bodybuilding, because he had that perfect V shape, those
Yep.
huge shoulders, and just, he looked rock solid.
That's what my wife said about the big one she saw. And it's funny, you say that about Patty, because my second encounter was with a female, very 30 feet away. And I tell you what, the biggest part on her, most impressive, was the hip area, the buttocks. So, like you said, I don't know if she had maybe just given birth, or whatever. And she wasn't shredded, muscularly shredded. She was big and damn well muscularly. It's not even a word. She was very put together,
Yeah,
but her buttocks area was massive.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I studied anatomy, so watching that film, I can tell that's not a suit. That's definitely not a
Oh,
suit. But when it came to, like what I was saying about her being, I don't know if it's a male female thing, where the women do tend to carry more body fat than men do, or if it's a fact that she's up north and Big Red was down south, and it's not as cold here. If they're like animals and they build up that fat for winter
right.
or whatever, I mean, there's so many theories that just fly around in my head that.
Me too. It's crazy. Yeah, well, that does make sense, because the one I saw when we were living in North Carolina, looked much different than what I've seen here. It
Yeah.
didn't carry as much body, like as you said, maybe a layer for the winter or whatever. It looked different. Get more conducive for that, for this, maybe for the swamp.
Mhm.
The ones up here are made for the mountains.
Yeah. It's
Maybe
like,
like not
I wonder if
different.
I wonder if it's adaptation, not evolution,
Right.
adaptation to the environment.
Absolutely.
Just like,
Good point.
people that live up north, they come down here and it's 30-degree weather, they're wearing shorts. They're like, it's warm
Oh
to
yeah.
me compared to, and I'm sitting there
Yeah.
going, take me to Florida, Hawaii, somewhere, get me warm. Because I don't, me and cold weather do not get along at all.
Well, it's about 5 below 0 up here right now, so it's a little cold.
I don't envy you at all.
It gets about it'll by the time end of February, beginning of March are the coldest. We'll see 30 below before it's all done with, and even that gets to me. It makes me wonder, when it gets that cold, how it affects them. You have any
You know,
thoughts on that?
to be honest with you, from what I have actually seen, and I consider myself, I've been doing this for 9 years,
Right.
but I still consider myself a rookie because all my, the circle, that you were talking about that we run
Yeah.
in, it seems like everybody's been in it for at least 20 years, right around 20 years. So I'm like, I feel like the baby in the group. But you know, uh, just researching them and trying to find the answers that we're so curious about. It's just, I don't know, I mean, it's like I said, I've got so many different ideas, and yet we don't know anything. And anybody that
Right.
says they know something about, or this is what they do, they're full of it.
They're full of
Because,
shit.
yeah, we don't know anything because it's not like you can sit there and watch a family of Squatch with binoculars and study them like you could do any other wildlife. And you can't. We have known that we can tranquilize like they do bears. Take its weight, its length, do field research or whatever, and get certain kind of anatomy and biological types of tests to see what they are, what they do, and
Yeah.
I mean, we're fighting a really hard fight here.
It is. It's an uphill battle
Yeah, and
for sure.
yeah, and it would be a lot nicer if the Bigfoot community could be nicer to each other instead
No.
of competing
Yes.
and putting each other down. And if you post something, be ready for criticism. Not
Absolutely.
everybody's going to see, especially when you post something with the pixelation is so terrible.
Yep.
And, I don't really have any of my evidence up anywhere
I don't
because,
anymore either. I used to, but dude, no, no.
yeah,
I mean, I don't
until
want
I
any
get
part of
that
that.
crystal, yeah, until I get that crystal clear picture,
Yep.
I won't share it, and I
Yep.
mean, sometimes I will share pictures of like tracks and whatnot
Sure.
because I like to, try and explain, like give people ideas. I've had a few people that have had some rather shallow tracks, but they look good. And they were like, I don't know if, it's not really deep enough to cast. I don't know how to, bring it out and show it. Can you see it? And I tell them, grab some baby
Yep.
powder, just sprinkle it within the foot or that print. And if it does define toes and whatnot, you know,
Yep.
then that's a good way to show it on a picture and take that measurement, see how big that foot is. It works great in grass. It works
Yep.
great in, like on top of leaves and, especially things that are uncastable, even if it's a really
Yes.
good print, but you can't cast on grass. So, I give little pointers, but I never ever tell people how to go out and squatch,
No.
because that's how you're going to get somebody hurt or, whatever. And I don't want to be responsible for that.
Yeah, me neither. And you brought up a really good point. Even within our little, like we were saying, the circle. We agree to disagree,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone's adult about it. I don't see why the whole community can't be like that.
Oh yeah.
It's just, I don't know, and it's always about something, just the stupidest thing, and it seems like some people enjoy it. you know what I you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And it's like, I've seen posts where somebody posts a picture and there's nothing there. And it's
Right.
total, if they do see something, it's total pareidolia. And then, I've seen where people have commented on it and said, can you please circle where you're talking about? Because I don't see anything. And they get so upset. If you don't like it, if you can't see it, then and I'm going, they just asked you a simple question, dude. They need, some
Yeah.
people don't see the pareidolia like you do. It's just not everybody sees the same thing when they look at a blurry, badly pixelated picture of a
Oh,
blob or a tree trunk or
certainly,
whatever it may be,
certainly,
and
certainly.
you
Same as a
know,
recording. I mean, not everyone hears the same thing. They're going to
exactly.
interpret it differently. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
like any type of evidence, I guess. Everyone's going to have a little bit of a different take on it, different interpretation or whatnot. You know, but yeah, I wish the community could come together a little bit better.
Yeah, but until
It's
you
been
can
going.
get your critical thinkers, or until you can get your, I call them, your apocalypse thinkers and your critical thinkers. The reason why I call it
Yes,
apocalypse is because they're talking way in the future type, the
in the future.
wormholes, the
Yep.
interdimensional beings, and the things like that. And you're sitting there going, let's slow down on that, because
Hmm.
that's really what's going to give us a bad rep. Let's stick to the
Yes.
basics and let's just sit there and study this like try to study it like you would a bear. You get the sightings.
Yeah.
Try to take that clear picture. Do I think that your cell phone or what your camera, whatever you're taking the picture is always going to get a blurry picture because they put off bad vibes or they mess it up? No. It's because you're sitting there doing this, or
Yeah.
you're trying to fool somebody and you're
Yeah.
full of it. And if you go out and you say you have stuff every single day, you're full of it.
You're lying. Yeah. I'm like you. I come from a logging family, and we have a lot of land, and we've always had a family group that usually comes through from April to November, and they're gone. I don't know where they go, but they're gone. Anyway, and I'm really good friends with a police officer, retired police officer, and he lives about 17 miles away. And if you were to walk, we have a spring out back, and I think that's what brings them in, is the spring, that fresh, clean water.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't it? And if you were to walk and follow the stream from the spring and follow that, you would wind up at his farm he has now.
Mm.
So we're starting to think we're kind of sharing the same family group. But my point being is, what are your thoughts on? Because I'll tell you about the picture he caught in a second. But what are your thoughts on trail cams? You think they
You
know
mean
what
as
they
far as
are? They know
using them, or like what people say it's useless to use them, or do I think it's any good to
well
use?
everything. Yeah. Do you think they know that they are there? They put there for a purpose, be used on them.
Um, I don't know if they know that, unless you do go out there and whoop and do wood knocks, and then they see
Yeah.
you place these cameras. that's a no-brainer. They're like, yeah, they're looking for me. They're looking for us. And
Yeah.
then, if you've got somebody that's walking around, carries a tree stand and puts it up, they know that's for a hunter. He's trying to catch deer.
Absolutely.
I mean, these things are not stupid. I think they are fully intelligent. And, they can look at those signs and, they know how to manipulate. And I'm not saying through vibes or, turning them off and making them
No.
act weird like a paranormal type kind of thing, but they can move them or they can knock them down, bury them,
Sure.
just without getting a shot off of them. Because my best friend's been having activity out on her property. And she's one of those that doesn't believe but doesn't not believe. She's on the fence.
Yeah.
And her husband's gotten some pretty good vocals when he's gone out hunting at 4 a.m. But then you go back to gosh, I just lost my train of thought again. I'm getting old these days.
Cameras.
Her husband has a particular game cam that's set over this clearing, and then you see the woods and whatnot, and something keeps setting it off, but there's nothing on it. Now there's
Nothing
has
on.
been a few where it's like, okay, yeah, there's eye shine, but it's one eye. And she's like, is that a Bigfoot? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, it's probably a deer. It's a deer from the side. And you're just seeing
Yeah.
that one eye. And, she's asking me, but what about this shadow? What about that? And I'm like, no, that's, pareidolia. It's like looking up at the clouds and you see a shape. You see a dog. You see this, you see that. So, I do my best to try and educate those that ask me and be fair about it. But I don't think that trail cams are a bad thing. It doesn't hurt
No.
to set
Oh,
them up. It never
definitely not.
does. Any kind of cameras. And, like with my GoPro, I put my baseball hat on backwards the other day and strapped it, and I had that thing on the back of my head the whole time I was walking around, just in case, something's
Sure.
going on behind me, because I've got my phone to film in front of me. But, and I've heard, there have been some very strange things down where, I was talking about earlier in Squatch world, where, yeah, there have been some odd things caught on her trail cam. And we believe we even caught an Alabama white thing on there. I'm supposed to find she still hadn't gotten back to me about how many megapixels it is, because Gary was telling me, however many megapixels it is, he could give me a height of how big this thing is. But I mean, it was way back off their yard like right outside the wood line. And what set the camera up, which is, I can't remember, it's probably about 10 feet up on the utility pole. But what set it off was her husband was leaving. So the truck drove by and it just happened to take that snap. And then you see this humanoid solid white figure back along the wood line. So, I mean, there's some interesting photos and whatnot that, have been captured with a game cam.
Sure.
Like I said, I don't think that they put out vibes to screw with them and make the pixelation bad or make them go out and any of that. I just
Right.
think they know what they are, they know what they're for, and they do their best to avoid them. But sometimes you can
Sure.
get a part of them. So,
Well, he caught one. He caught two on it actually, and it's quite a ways away for a trail cam shot, but it must have just barely caught it. But pixelation isn't the best. I'll send you the picture, or I'll dig it up and I'll send it to you, and you can check it out. But
yeah.
you're already seen it and stuff, and I think it's legit, because again, like I told you, we've seeing the same ones in our properties, and it looks like the female I saw. She's in front, and there's a red juvenile behind her.
Oh, wow.
And in her left hand, she's carrying the skull of something, whether it be a deer or a coyote. I don't know.
Wow.
But it's a very cool picture. Now, since I talked to him last time, he's like, did you look at the new, he cleaned it up a little bit, and he sent it to me. I really didn't get a chance to analyze it. He said, did you see how I cleaned it up? He's like, did you notice that third one? I said, I got to be honest, I really didn't. I didn't notice that third one, but the camera ended up being damaged afterwards, and it makes you wonder, if there was a third one there, that throw a rock at it or something, because you know how proficient they are with rocks.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just food for thought,
Yeah,
just
there's
food
no
for
telling.
thought.
There is no telling.
There really isn't. You just don't know what they're gonna do, and when they're gonna do it. I do believe in my heart some are way more aggressive than others. And
I, in all honesty, have only had one bad experience,
yep,
which I don't know if it was male or if it was female, but we had went down to Squatch World. It was used to, of course, the woman that my friend that lives there, me, and another woman that that would frequently come up, and we do our field research with. And when I say it's not a tribe, it's not a group, it's like a full-on community that's living around here. And when it's just us three, they're fine. We can get
yeah,
within 20 feet of them. Of course, I've only had that one class A. The rest of them have all been outlines, shadows, eye shine,
sure,
that kind of thing. But they she had sent off some evidence to some people out west, and it became this: we need to come investigate your land. And she told me, she had a cryptozoologist, a guy that's proficient and well known in the Bigfoot world,
mm-hmm.
And then a skeptic along. And we were walking, we had just come up from this trail that goes down to the swamp. And as we were walking, you could just hear this, coming, it was like a freight train off the rails coming through the brush. And I even whipped around and I never go out without my gun. And I whipped around and had my hand on the butt of the
Yeah.
pistol. And I was ready to draw because I didn't know if it was a bear. I didn't know if it
Sure.
was, a big cat or whatever, but I knew it was huge. And then the way you just hear that like that. So it was like a bluff rush.
Yeah.
And so immediately I'm like, okay, we're leaving. And I took my hand off because I don't ever want to shoot a Sasquatch.
Me neither.
The gun is strictly for protection from, wild animals and I'm not just going to say, okay, say I see one, let me shoot that bobcat. No, it has to be coming after me to attack,
Absolutely.
that kind of thing.
I worry more about people than anything else, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, I like animals a heck of a lot better than people.
Me too. Yeah, I worry more about people meeting up with some psychopath out there, So, I get it. I would never want to hurt one of these things. Never, ever, ever.
No,
never.
I'll tell you. Since we were talking about the vocals, you'll find this one interesting. It was a 4-day investigation when those guys came over, and this was either the night before the last or the actual last night that we were out. We weren't getting a whole lot of activity, and we had split up into groups. And the woman that owns the property, she had gone ahead and gone inside. And then the cryptozoologist and the skeptic and our friend went, further on down the road, and I was with the Bigfoot guy. And we had just been walking. It was in December. It was in the 20s. We're all freezing. And like I said, no activity. So we're like, let's go inside for the night. And he stands back, and I've actually got a recording of it because we had a huge boom mic like right at her driveway, but we were a good 75 to 100 yards away from it. And you hear him yell out, "Roll call, for telling everybody to come in or yell out from where they are. And 20 feet in front of us, we hear, yeah. And it sounded just like the skeptic guy. Well, and he was like, okay, there's Jason. Now we need to find the others. I don't mind mentioning the skeptic's name. But so then we see a figure coming down, and it's our other friend, and we're like, you left, the crypto guy down there by himself? And she was like, no, he's down there talking to Jason. No, he's not. Jason's like right there inside the wood line, and this was 20 feet away from us. And she goes, no, he's down there. So I reached over to, Bigfoot guy and grabbed the flare, practically, choked him with it. And I'm sitting there doing this, and I was like, holy shit, there are two people down there talking. And me and him look at the woods, and we were like, what's going on? And she was like, I'm going in the house. We're like, let us walk you at least, since we had the bluff rush earlier, we didn't know what to expect and how they's
Right.
gonna react. But it was just, and there's a whoop afterwards, but the whoop the one that was 20 feet away from us just goes, yeah. And then shortly after that, off in the distance, you hear a whoop. But I think it was on the other side of where the microphone was, because it sounded fairly close. But it was just, that was one that really, for the books, that blew my mind.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it sounded like him, you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
We swore up it because we even said his name. Okay, that's Jason.
Yeah.
And even with a short word, yeah, it's like, okay, there he is. Even though there were 3 guys and 3 girls, one of which was already inside and the other one was way down the road. And for some reason, I don't know if maybe they knew he was a skeptic and that's why they chose his voice or whatever. I just,
Yeah.
only Lord knows why they do what they do.
And they're good at it. Like when it comes to the, they are good at it. I mean, I hear him mimic the coyotes here all the time. And granted, it's a little bit off. They'll get it just about right, but you can tell it's just a tad bit off.
Yeah, and then they garble it at the end.
Right. But they're good at it. Yeah, they're good at what they do.
I've heard them
people
mimic
got to give them
chickens
that.
too.
For turkeys and they can mimic just about anything, I think. And including humans apparently.
Yeah,
It's a very interesting story.
Yeah,
Very interesting. Extremely.
It blew my mind that night. And here we decided to go ahead and go in, and I was like, I want to stay out now more. But we did stay for a little bit to see if we could get it, and we weren't going to try and scare it off by approaching it going towards that part of the brush, but
Right.
it was just, after that was it. And we never heard it like crunching away in the leaves and walking. We never heard it come close to us. That's one thing that amazes me is how stealthy they are. Because
It's unreal.
oh yeah, I went to the tribe. I went to the tribal lands yesterday, but I had also gone earlier in the week and didn't get any cast worthy tracks, but I did find a trail, in the leaves, and there's I'm an experienced tracker, and I'm good at what I do. I wouldn't put myself up against Gary with for everything he's done, but I'm pretty good. I know what to look for, and I'm sitting there, I followed this trail. It about kicked my ass. It took me all the way up the ridge and down by this, these rocks where I'm sitting there sliding and get around, and then like the end of it was where like he went up rocks that would have been like regular stairs to us, but to me, I would have been, having to, hike, use my arms and hike my leg up. And I was like, forget that. I'm not going any further. But then if I had to backtrack something or whatever, and I look behind myself, I'm like, somebody that doesn't know tracking from their ass could easily follow me. because I look like an elephant leaving prints in the sand. So,
Right.
it's just, you got to know what you're looking for.
You do.
And
Yeah.
it's not, and you're not always going to find things, which is disappointing, but at the same time, it's the reality.
Yep. So it's just the way it is. I mean, it's the way it is. I think sometimes, you made a good point how stealthy they are, and if they don't want you to hear them, you aren't going to hear them.
Exactly.
But through my, over the years, through my experience, I've had some times where I know in my heart they wanted me to know they were there. They just either they didn't care or they wanted me to know that they were there. Whether to make sure I moved along or they just didn't care. Thinking to themselves, well, what's he gonna do about the situation anyway if we walking through? I don't know. It's so they're stealthy at the same time though. Sometimes I don't know. It's the topic that just blows my mind. It just your head's always spinning. It's always spinning with theories, and every time you think you have a theory down and you figured it out, that something happens that flies right out the window and throws that theory away, and 20 more questions pop up, and so yeah, it's pretty.
Seems like,
it's wild.
You find one thing that you think answers a question, and it just
Yes.
leads to so many more questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess it was back at the beginning of the month, I'd gone out to the tribal lands, and I was sitting on a log talking to the person that was with me, and all of a sudden we start hearing the leaves crunch, and it was definitely bipedal, and it was on this little ridge right above us, and it just kind of kept going. I'm sitting there like, and we listened for 20 minutes to it, just like it was just walking in circles or walking back and forth. And I was like, I've got to see this thing. So we get up and we walk further down the trail where we can cross the creek a little bit easier, and it goes silent. And I'm like, I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna see if I can find some tracks. And I could see where, it had stepped on ferns, and, they were freshly bent. Saw some good leaf tracks. I sent Gary a couple pictures. There was one that I wanted to cast so bad, but right where the toes would have been, there was like a root. So it's basically, it's like the foot back, and you're just like, nobody is going to believe without the toes. So that's not worth it. And, I called the girl that was with me, I called her up, and I turned around and said, I'm showing her this. I was showing her the ferns, and, saying, and went through there so you can see that broken twig and whatnot. And while I'm sitting there explaining it to her, down below where we had just come up from, you hear it start walking. And I'm like, that little son of a bitch, how did he get down there? And without me hearing, I'm like, they drive me crazy because they are so stealthy. And it,
so
it makes
stealthy.
you wonder, you question your own sanity. But I mean, I think that's the one thing that makes us. Yeah, but I think that's one of the things that make us so. And I'm not trying to say I'm awesome or I'm good at what I do, but makes people like us good at what we do is we do put that critical thinking in there. Not everything is Sasquatch. We try to debunk. We try and figure things out, and we share with each other instead of just blasting on Facebook or wherever saying, this is this. It's like, hey, Gary, Jeremiah, check this out. Tell me what you guys think, like what you were talking about. And I sent him a picture that was my first picture of a Sasquatch. And he's like, I don't know about that one. He said, but you've got one here, one there, and one there. And I started looking at it, and I was like, well, damn, okay. I didn't even, and he was like, in your pictures, always look for at least 2 layers of brush in between them and you. And I never, you think of them as hiding. They're the masters of camouflage, but you don't really think about just how many layers they want between you, what they do.
Yeah.
So.
It's like we got talking the other night, Gary and I. Even gorillas, you can walk down. You can be in Rwanda and be walking up the mountain, and they could be 10 feet next to you with just leaves over their face, and you're not gonna see them.
Yeah.
It just still what? Yeah, damn kid. It's just yeah, it's just stealth. It's unbelievable. Gorillas, and and I think these guys are the same way. They don't want you to see them. You're not gonna see them.
Yeah, and a lot of
In
people say,
most of the time.
yeah, a lot of people sit there and go, they teleport, or like I said earlier, the wormholes,
Yeah,
and that's why they're so silent. And I'm like, no, because if they teleport and that explains how they could be so silent when they move, then evidently big cats and bears can do the
teleport as
same
well.
thing, because they can come. I mean, especially big cats, they will
Moose as well.
stalk you
Yep.
from behind for the longest time. And bikers, even though bikers probably have headsets in and whatnot, but when they're riding their not motorcycles, excuse me, when they're riding their bikes on trails and whatnot, these things stalk you for a while, and then they attack
Sure,
from the back, and you never hear them coming ever. And
sure.
just like the bear, you could be walking along a trail, and there could be a bear that saw you, you know a mile back, and he's like, okay, that looks like dinner, and you never
Yeah,
hear them coming up on you. So that,
yeah.
that's why there are a lot of wildlife maulings, because people don't have that, swivel on their head, and they don't have the situational
Absolutely.
awareness. And, I mean, that's, like, I don't like going out by myself. I will do it if it's in a familiar area, but I kind of like somebody there to watch my six too.
Sure.
Even though I keep my head on that swivel and whatnot, it's just, you know, I don't like surprises.
No,
I'm one
no,
of those
I
people
hear
where,
you.
I'd rather, see it coming and be able to be prepared to find one way to fend it off, other than my firearm.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It's like I've seen some of the trails and some of the stuff that moose get through, and you're talking about something with a hard foot, and you do not hear them. And
mhm.
50-some-inch rack, I mean 1,600-pound ball, and some of the stuff they get through without you hearing them. They must teleport too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. And what I find when it comes to, being out in, the brush, whether you're or out in the bush, if you're camping, or if you're just doing a quick little hike through the woods, whatever it may be, um, it's that kind of thing where it seems like the smaller the animal, the louder they are, the
oh
bigger the
sure,
animal, the more stealthy they are.
sure,
Because the reason I got that one picture that I was just telling you about, I'd been kayaking and looking all day, and then I heard this commotion off to my right. I was trying to get out of the lake at the time, and I turn around and I'm like, oh my God, that's got to be one. And it was a squirrel. And so I took the picture as a joke to post and say, well, I didn't catch the big guy, but I found Littlefoot today. And then little did I know, there's a few of them actually in that picture watching me. And it's
very
just,
cool.
I'm sitting there going, wow, I need to pay more attention to my pictures. But yeah, I
I
mean, I
Yeah, I
question it.
always do that. I always go back even months later. I'll pull them back out and go through them again. Some
And
6, 7 times sometimes.
yeah, also, one thing I do to double check myself when I'm doing video footage or cameras, I purposely will go, once I've taken, I'll go ahead and take pictures of the area. And of course, like I said, I've got it hanging off videoing. But there's I'll find a nice spot for each section and use my binoculars and just go up and down around the terrain
Yep.
to find dark tree stumps, to find shadows, or what looks like, an arm reaching around a tree or something peeking out, and determining what that is, so that I'm not sitting there playing around with my footage going, is that what I think it is? Or, it's just,
Yeah.
I like to that whole, area, get that visual up close before I
Sure.
see it far away on the video or the picture and start thinking it is something.
Sure. Right. No, I got you. I got you. I totally agree on all that, without a doubt. Unfortunately, actually, I got to cut this short tonight.
No,
Got
that's
some chores to do around the house.
yeah, me and
Gotta
you both.
play housewife for a while.
I
I'd
appreciate
love
you
to have you
having
back
me
on at some
on.
point. Yeah, my pleasure. We'd like to actually have you on the round table sometime if
That'll work.
you'd be game for that. You know,
Oh yeah.
we like to we have fun on that show, but we still get our point across, but still have a good time. You know,
Oh yeah.
that's what it's all about.
Well, I appreciate it again. I really enjoyed talking to you, and
Yeah, definitely for
you
sure.
have got to come on my show and tell
Absolutely,
more about your experiences. So
absolutely. Say the word, and I'll be there.
you got it. It will be
All right,
done.
Ash. You have a good evening.
You too. Thanks.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.